Ladies and gentlemen, Amigos. God, these guys are loco. If you're looking for a responsible, mature podcast, this ain't it. If you're looking for a lot of drinking, random nonsense, stunts, and shenanigans, you've hit the jackpot. It's Amigos with your hosts, Scott and Mark.
And we're here live, Amigos PC. We have our special guest, Ralph Sutton from Gas Digital Network and the SDR podcast. Or you just go by SDR Show, right?
I like SDR Show. We called it that in the beginning because 6 years ago, I was embarrassed to be on a podcast because I thought podcasts were for people that couldn't do radio, and I was in radio at the time. So I called it the SDR Show. But I think it flows better. It's the S alliteration.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've listened to one of your episodes just recently, and it's awesome. I love what you guys do. The most recent one, that one was. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that was a great introduction to what you guys do.
It was the co-ed squirt off. Is that what you're implying?
Yeah, that is that one.
Yeah. Once every 3 to 5 months, we do what I call a stunt show, which is just basically doing something stupid, just for the sake of being stupid. And it's harder to pull off, obviously, when you are not in front of people. So that was what we came up with. It was really stupid.
That was awesome. I didn't watch the video, but I'm sure the video is even better than the audio.
No, I did 17 times over and over again. You could be honest. It's fine.
That's true. You got me.
He had it on repeat.
Of course, yeah. There's nothing else to watch out there.
And now it's the only way Scott can finish. It's fine.
That's true.
Look, now you're turning him red.
By the way, Amigos PC. I'm assuming the PC is not politically correct. What is the PC part?
It's meant to be for podcast. But podcast. I mean, everybody is implying it as like politically correct, which we definitely. Well, at least I'm definitely not. But
I also
compared to your show, though,
originally I thought maybe you don't use Macs, you're only using PCs, but then I see it looks like a Mac in front of them, so that makes me think it wasn't that. So then I switched to politically correct, but I was wrong.
Well, yeah, that's good. I mean, it keeps you guessing.
Yeah, yes. It's very good branding when it's my third guess.
Thank you so much.
I definitely compared to your show, though. We are not we are very PC, I guess you could say. Compared
you are
to
PC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean compared to your show, yes, definitely.
I guess. Also, I always do homework on any show I go on, so I listen to a couple of episodes, like just the I want to say actual episode, but the one with the guy from Lock and Key and the one with the girl, the most recent one, and then one other random one. But it seems like every week you guys have fucking audio problems. What's going on over there?
We can't figure it out.
Who's the tech guy of you two?
That would be Mark. Yeah, that'd be Mark.
Blame Mark, man. Mark.
He's the guy that does everything right here. This guy.
I start Googling some shit, Mark. I got to tell you that.
Well, this is the first time I'm actually back in the studio for a while with all this COVID stuff going on. So now I have the mixer.
Is that what it was? I got it. So you were the ones I listened to were the firsts that were in this new world that we're living in, and that's why it wasn't working.
Yeah. No, but we've had technical problems in the past too, just trying to figure all this stuff out. Swapping out parts, which I'm sure you can relate to. Closets of audio equipment just sitting around now at this point.
This closet right here is filled with about $10,000 worth of failed experiments.
Sounds about right.
We're not
at that level, but yeah.
We've spent a good chunk of change on like different things that we've swapped out and upgraded and things like that. But once we're all back in the studio, the audio issues should really be gone.
Yeah, it's funny is that people do not realize how hard it is. Audio is easy, but then when you bring in other aspects, are we going to do video? Are we going to have lower thirds? Are we going to pull something up from a computer screen? Are we going to take calls? Like each one of those elements brings in a whole set of shit. And it's crazy how, and then if you want your audio to sound good, like right now, Scott has a good microphone. No, sorry, Mike, right? Is it Mike?
Mark
Has a good microphone. Scott's microphone sucks wiener, and you can tell. It's just horrible.
Thank you.
Spend the $25 and get a microphone because it sounds like you're talking to me from an echo chamber.
Oh, well, he's in like one of his pool halls or whatever the Grand Canyon. If you look in the back.
Pool hall.
I guess
because I'm in the Grand Canyon. That's why it's echoing. That's what you're hearing. Yeah, that's why.
And that's the thing. If he were to come to where our studio is, there's a mic here that he could actually pick up and bring home. But we're indie podcasters, and it's unfortunate.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I mean, I'm all for just getting started. Just do your show. I know you're like 90 episodes in, right?
Yeah,
so
yes,
in the grand scheme of podcasting, you're in it enough time. I mean, you see you have sound dispersion behind you, Mark, so that shows good. That's a good sign, you know? So,
yeah.
And your microphone is a good microphone. So I understand now in this world that we live in, I understand why you don't have a good mic. It's hard. It's really, when we found out on that Thursday 3 months ago that everything was going to close by Monday, I had to meet with my whole staff and figure out, okay, how the fuck are we going to get 25 shows starting Monday able to still stream their shows from their homes? So we pulled like all the mics out, all the video cameras out, and we just got like 12 Ubers and sent them everywhere, and we were able to keep the shows going. Amazingly, not one show skipped a beat, but some of them sounded terrible. Like even SDR had, because Jay rented he was afraid to be in New York, so he rented a cabin upstate or something, and their internet sucked. So he kept cutting out. There's not much you could do. But in the important thing with podcasts, you just fucking forge ahead and keep doing whatever you can, and that's the right way to do it.
Well, and I told Scott too. I'm like, we're not going to miss a beat. I mean, at first we were like, okay, well, what are we doing? And it did take us maybe like a week and a half to figure out. All right, well, we're just going to record remotely and try to figure out that way. And we were recording from home through StreamYard and things like that. But yeah, no, then we just started having technical difficulties left and right, and it's been insane until last week. We both were like, we need to get back into the office and into the studio and just use our normal equipment. Obviously,
yeah.
Scott can get this
one. What I can tell you is that at every, and I don't want to say level, it sounds condescending, but at every stage you're going to have audio issues. There's a crazy story is last May, I think it was like a year ago, I was in LA and I had to go to Joe Rogan's studio to help them wire something because they didn't know how to do it. So even they were having problems. You're talking the biggest podcast on the planet, and I went there to show them how to set something up. So it just shows you that everybody has fucking issues. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
Everybody has issues.
Very true.
What do you think about Joe Rogan and his big deal that he just made? I don't understand why there's anyone casting a negative shadow on it. The only negative I have one. First of all, we don't know. I'll tell you what. There's a couple of aspects to this. The thing no one is talking about, which I'm surprised, is he said September he's starting on Spotify, and then by the end of the year, it'll be exclusive to Spotify, audio and video. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
The thing that's weird about that is that no one seems to be talking about. Spotify doesn't have video right now. So he just backhandedly launched the Spotify video platform that no one's even saying, well, what the fuck is that? What are you talking about?
I actually said something to someone the other day about that yesterday. I was like, well, so what is Spotify doing? Like, are they planning to buy like an alternate service like Vimeo or something? Or like, are they launching their own video platform? Because Rogan is both. I don't understand.
He made a clear statement that audio and video would be on Spotify.
Yes. Yeah.
So something's happening, and that hasn't been addressed. The other issue I have is like, I don't care. He's probably going to lose even if he loses 20% of his audience. Who gives a shit? He has millions upon millions. Makes no difference to him. Yeah. The other issue I have is when you hear about these more and more multiple millions of dollar deals, whether it be the $400 Barstool got, $400 million Barstool got, the 200 million Gimlet got, and whatever, and now this $100 million deal for Joe, it puts more eyes on podcasting, which is a good thing. But coming from radio, which I did for 18 years, I know what a pain in the ass it can be to be under the guide of under the thumb rather of the FCC. And as of right now, podcasters have been super lucky there is no FCC for podcasting. It's totally the wild, wild west. You could say anything you want, whenever you want. Doesn't matter. If PC stood for pussy control, it wouldn't matter. You could still do whatever you want, right?
Pussy cock is what it stands for. Pussy cock. Yeah.
Whatever. If it was like the anti-politically correct show, where every show you make sure you say every inappropriate ethnic slur possible, you could still do it. No one's stopping you. Yeah. But if the FCC gets involved, it changes everything. Not just free speech, but it changes things like maybe you have to give an ID every hour of what network you're on. Maybe you have to make sure that there's a delay so that if you curse, you have to dump it out. Who knows? If the FCC gets involved, it changes everything. So my prayer is that this isn't the first step to a far more politically correct landscape.
So you're basically saying you don't want it, basically the podcast world to turn into the radio world, right? Obviously, right? Yeah, because it was one of the main reasons why I left radio, is that I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. It was like, it was a crazy, like when I first started in radio, it was like the classic idea was you can't say certain words, and as long as you don't say those words, you're fine. And then it would be fun to try and figure out ways to say things without saying them. Because you couldn't say, I just took a shit, but you could say, look, I made a poopy. Funny, it's not, it's bad, but it still would get whatever. But then the laws changed about inference and connotation more than actual words. So if somebody, like I got in trouble once, and I've said this example many times, but it's a great analogy to this, is that I said, a girl had said on an interview that she needed a hammer. And this was like a legitimate thing she was doing. So she goes, I just need a hammer. And I said, stupid joke, I got your hammer right here. Right? Which implies my penis, but maybe you can't see me. It's audio. Maybe I'm holding a hammer. Who knows? Right? And I got a lot of really irate. My program director in like in the middle of, at the time the show was on like 80 stations. And this program director in Iowa was like, called me up. He goes, how dare you? Your show was being played at a festival with children. How dare you? I said, you're the one making it sexual. I didn't make it sexual. I was holding a hammer. Right. And then it was back and forth. And that's when I realized, wow, this is getting crazy. And it's just becoming not fun anymore. And that's when I started looking at taking podcasting more seriously. So I'm afraid it was a different thing of like, we're not going to tell you what you can't say. But when you say something we don't like, you're going to get in trouble. So you have no idea what it is until after you did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Your boss saying, make sure you're on time tomorrow. I'm just not going to tell you when that time is. But if your time's wrong, you're going to get fired. It doesn't help, So it was a crazy time and became less and less fun to work in regular radio. Having said that, there was nothing like live nationwide radio with no delay where you can't curse. That energy, you can't fake it. You can't. There's no do-overs. The band is late. It fucks up your whole schedule. It was a crazy time. It was like in the early 2000s. I started the show in 99, did it till 2017. But in that early 2000s time, for like 8 years, it was crazy. It really was fun. But I missed that energy because you get the biggest podcast on the planet. It's still basically you could say and do whatever you want, and it's pre-taped for the most part. Because even if you're streaming live, I'm sure you guys realize this already with your show. What is it? 2% watch live, if that much?
Yeah. Not that many watch live. It's after the fact that we get hundreds to anywhere to we really haven't broke thousands, but 1,000 at least views at some point or whatever.
Right. So if something was said tonight where Scott admits that he was masturbating to that porn that we talked about earlier, and then he decides that he doesn't probably want his wife and kids to hear about that. So can we take that out and post? You can, and no one but the 2% that watched it are going to ever know. So it doesn't really matter. And that's what's different about radio. Plus with radio, not only were there no do-overs, but it never lived again. You said it once and that was it. So if they missed it, they never got to go back and listen again. So that kind of energy is gone, really. Most radio is voice track these days anyway, and radio doesn't matter anymore. So that energy is gone. But you find new things to excite you. So we got people to masturbate on video camera. We figure out things that'll turn you on.
Do you feel that the FCC it's inevitable? Like it's gonna happen? Okay.
There's not enough money in podcasting right now. They said, I think it was last year, $400 million was spent on podcasting. It's a drop in the bucket compared to radio and TV and movie endorsements. It's nothing compared. We're talking in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So they just don't care. But once it gets to that point, to me, there's no doubt in my mind it will become part of the FCC's umbrella.
So more of these big deals, like the Joe Rogan deals and stuff, is going to be what's going to.
I think so. I'm not a soothsayer, but I really believe it logically makes sense when there's enough meat on the bone. Because also, they don't know who's accurately paying their taxes, who's accurately, representing their numbers. There's going to be some, even now, like IAB standards, and it's all like it's the Wild West. It's all crazy. So they're going to come in under the guise of, we're going to standardize this and make sure everything's fair. And by the way, here are the 45 new rules you're going to have to all abide by.
Yep.
I don't like censorship. So I don't know if that'll work in our little thing, but
going forward, hosts can't wear crappy iPhone mics or something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks again for the shout outs, Ralph. You're awesome.
So how did Gas Digital Network become a thing? Like where did it fruition from?
So I had been doing SDR for about 3 years at that point. Okay. And through SDR, I met other podcasters. And most importantly, I would say, the biggest show on the network is Legion of Skanks, which is my co-host's other show. And one of the co-hosts on that show is Lewis, who is the G in Gas. Gas stands for Gomez and Sutton. And so we came up with that name because it also allowed for branding like High Octane Entertainment and Fuel Up With Us and blah, blah, blah. So it just was a good name because it had two meanings. And the thought process for me was at the time, I have a radio show that's on 100 stations. None of them are big stations. They're all small to medium-sized markets. But you put them all together and you can make money. Yeah. So why don't we get a few small to medium-sized shows like ours? At the time, we were both a lot smaller than we are now. And collectively, we could start selling ads. And the actual thought process was I could sell ads through my radio show because we already had an ad sales department. And podcasting was an area that my ad sales company was looking into. So it all made sense to us. So we launched with 4 shows 3.5 years ago. And it built from there. So there, it was done in this room. If you could see behind me, it still has the Gas logo and the SDR logo. This was my second bedroom that I had used for my radio show. I was doing my radio show out of here. And so we already had the equipment. Just in that, we even had some basic video cameras and stuff. But so it was an easy transition to just say, all right, now on Mondays and Wednesdays, the 4 shows are going to come and record for Gas Digital. All right. Fast forward a year and a half later, we had 11 shows. And then there was anywhere from 8 to 15 people in my apartment every day of the week. And I was about to go on a killing spree because I had no home anymore. My house became an office. And the breaking point day was I was on a date and I came home at like 10:30 at night. The last show was supposed to leave at 9:45 so that I would have the plate to myself. I gave it an extra half hour, 40 minutes. I came in on a first date to 11 dudes in my apartment. And it looked like I was bringing a woman home to gang rape her. And she was like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And then I don't think she believed I was, what are you guys doing here? She's like, yeah, what are these? Like, you don't know 11 guys are going to be in your apartment, And it turns out that one of the shows just decided they wanted to do a bonus show after they taped without asking me. And that day I said, okay, we need to figure out another option. And so I started looking for a space. I found a space near my apartment, and we were using the money we had saved up to start the refurbishment of that space to build an actual network. But to me, that moment when we opened those doors was when the network really started, which was 2 years ago this week, was when I look at it as like, we're now a real network because we have actual bills to pay. We had to set up an LLC. We didn't need an LLC when doing it in the second bedroom, you know. But if you're going to rent a studio space, you got to rent it under the umbrella of the company. So 2 years ago is when we started. We had 11 shows. We now have 25. The subscriptions have been doing well. Everything launched into subset businesses. So the ad sales splintered off into an ad sales company. The studio splintered off into a studio rental company. Merchandise split off to a merch rental company, like for merch T-shirts and shit like that. And then the network itself still exists as the network. So there's 4 companies that came out of this thing. The umbrella being, you know, it's Gas Digital, and then there's the network.
Yeah,
NYC Podcasting is the podcast place. The merch platform was originally called Merch Pump, but is now called Podcast Merch. And then we have the ad sale side, which it's funny because forever I would call it the ad side. So we got to go talk to the ad side about this. So we called the ad side. That's the name of that company.
And do you have different people then running that then, or
we have about 13 people that are engineers, art guys. I think it's 15 now. Engineers, art guys, ad sales people, you know, producers, artwork, web guys, etc. About 15 people that work at the network. We did not fire anybody, which is amazing to me that we were able to keep the network going 100%. Not a single show missed a show. And that was stressful as hell. But it looks like we're going to come out of the other side leaner and even more profitable because it forced us to analyze every dollar.
Yeah, okay. Did you guys see an uptick in viewership or listeners or things like that?
I'm sure you've seen this on your end. I don't know if you did, but actual audio listeners across the board, be it Spotify, Overcast, Anchor, they all posted 30 to 50% drops in listenership. Viewership has gone up dramatically. In fact, both YouTube and Netflix in certain countries had to pull back the quality of their streams because they were afraid they were going to break the fucking internet. There's so many people are streaming. So our viewership, but you know, for us, I think we did a, you know, look, these numbers change all the time, but at one point, I think it was 1 or 2% watched live, and then 4% or 5% watched the video on YouTube, and then the other 94% were audio listeners. So most of our base comes from the podcast itself, not the video. And that's not true across every show. Like Godfrey, who's a great show on the network, his video is blown up recently, so he's doing, you know, I don't know what his numbers are, but more video. Legion does a lot of video, you know, but my show is almost all podcasts, very little video. So it depends. Some shows are much more video audio, but I think that collectively it averaged out to that, like 94, 4, and 2.
When you started the network and shows were going, like, were you gravitating towards certain sources with, like, whether it be video or audio once you figured out what was working, or did you just say, you know what, let's throw everything out there and see what happens?
Well, every show was already doing video.
Okay.
But and that was part of the precursor to be on the network, is that you'd have to do video also. But we've changed the business model. It's one of the, I think, benefits of being a smaller company is that you can easily change your model if you have to. So when we started, I think only the newest 5 episodes are free. And the live streams were not free.
Okay.
But now all the streams are live in SD, in standard definition. You go to gasdigitalnetwork.com/live and you can watch every show for free live, right? But now it's 15 episodes, and there was no YouTube. YouTube was just for clips. So now it just became too convoluted to explain the business model. So now it's very easy. All the SD streams are live. The newest 15 episodes are available everywhere, be it YouTube or podcasts or whatever. The newest 15 episodes are available in SD. And then if you want it immediately, you want it commercial free, you want to chat live, you want access to every episode ever on demand of all the shows, you subscribe to the network.
Nice.
And we've changed that as we go. We may change it again. The one thing that we've been trying to adhere to 100%, which is amazing that we did when we first started, it's hindsight, it was a really stupid idea. You could subscribe to just one show on the network for $2.50. Okay. After the credit card processing took its fee, we had I think it was at $2.01. And then you split it with the show. So we were making next to nothing per person for a single channel subscriber. And it just was, for that dollar and change that we were getting, it wasn't worth the financial headache to have those options available. So we got rid of it. But because we want to always be true to our fan base, we said, if you are subscribed as a single channel subscriber, we're never going to cancel you. As long as you keep it active, you can still have that. So we have, I think, 1,000 people left that still are paying $2.50 for one of, I think, 7 shows. And they have the best deal. If they love that show, that doesn't exist. And when we started, I think it was $6 and $7 for $7 to subscribe and $6 with a discount code. And now it's $9.50 and $8. So, the truth is that people think we're assholes for raising the money, but to have your own private HD servers that are getting a crazy amount of hits every day, it's expensive as shit. And you don't want to put it on YouTube because they'll all be censored or taken down. So they've got to be private. And that is our biggest expense every month, is servers and all costs related to the media. The media cost alone is probably more than a third of our monthly bill.
Wow.
Our budget, maybe more. So it's just
which is like your host provider and stuff like that. Is that what you're talking about?
The free stream provider, which is Art19, it's much more expensive when you're a network. So if you're just a show, it's like $20 a show, but it's 10 times that easily if you're going to be a network and you want to access you want to look at instead of logging to each show individually, if you want to be able to look at the network, and then also if you want to assign producers, you have access to your 4 shows. But I don't want, while I'm transparent 100% with the shows, your numbers, your subscribers, no other people do that. Like SiriusXM, good luck on finding out how many fucking people listen to your show. They will not tell you. But we are 100% transparent with our shows. Having said that, we don't want people outside of the people working on that show to know how many listeners. It's not my job to tell Godfrey how many listeners Michael Bisping has. It's not. If he wants to tell him, go tell him, but I'm not going to tell him,
Yeah. You're open about it, but you just, you don't want to waste time.
I'm not telling anyone that doesn't work for me how many subscribers we have. It's not your fucking business. I'm not going to tell people how many listeners we have. It's not your business. But I will tell anyone that works for me that needs to know, they get to know.
All right, I'm going to check that out. I'm going to cross it off of my questions. No, I'm just kidding.
Good job. Good thinking.
Also, what's funny is that because of the IAB standard, which to non-tech savvy people, it's a group of people, the Internet Advertising Bureau, that just for some reason we look to them to deem what quantifies a listen. And about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, they changed their minds. So everybody saw a drop in their listenership by at least 10% to as much as 40%. And all my hosts got so angry because they thought we had something to do with we have nothing to do with this. It's just a fucking standard. And my analogy that put people at rest, but it's just an ego thing. So it's the same amount of people are listening. It's just how they're quantifying it has changed. The example I gave is if you're driving a car, I could tell you miles per hour or I could tell you kilometers. Kilometers sounds better. It's a lot faster, but it's the same exact speed. It's a bigger number, but you're going the same speed. So what's the difference? It's just your ego. And finally, they started to understand that. But it's a weird thing that we've decided that they are the end-all, be-all for a listenership.
Well, I like the analogy you use to convey that, though, because for us, it seemed like they made that change, or our host provider maybe went to how they gauged listenership or things like that, probably about a year ago. Yeah. And we took a huge hit on our listens as a total. Like they just removed listens right off of.
But again, it's not removing listeners. It's just a different calculation for how the listener was quantified. It doesn't matter because they also don't even act like it doesn't account for. I could download your show as an MP3 and share it with 50,000 people that all listen, it counts as one listen. Because they can't know about a shared file. There's no way to know if it's a shared download. And I have seen SDR on countless torrents when I was doing my illegal torrent movie downloads, right? And even on, I don't know if you know what Kodi is, but it's like a thing to watch. So on Kodi, there's a channel for SDR someone set up. I didn't set it up. I can guarantee you we're not getting counted on those, you know? So what are you going to do? That will never factor into how many people listen. So again, I think it's weird that we've all decided to bow down to IAB and say, okay, I guess they know what they're talking about. It's just weird. I understand there needs to be a quantifier of some sort, but we actually just tell advertisers, try us out. If we don't give you good returns, then don't use us again. And most of our advertisers have been with us at least a year.
I like that approach.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good way to sell it for sure.
So that pitch that we do with Podcorn, Scott, try to do something like that.
Okay. I'll work on that right now.
We do have a question on one of the socials. Joe Audio, you may, from what I understand, you might actually be on his podcast tomorrow. The Yeah About That podcast. Yes. Who has more power on the network, you or Lewis?
Right now, we're not 50-50 owners because there's a couple of other minor investors, but we have equal investment in this. So I would say that we butt head. Oh, wow! Look what just happened.
Technical difficulty.
See, you need the Apple headphones.
Wow! I'll just do this here.
It's our open. It's just
we're known for this.
That's funny. I don't even know how that happened. I got to tighten that screw. So we both have equal partnership, but there's been times where we get into screaming matches pretty regularly about things that need to happen on the network. We end up usually seeing eye to eye on most stuff, but once in a while we get into arguments. I would say the reason why I believe that Gas has grown to where it is because our skill sets complement each other. He knows what I'm good at. I know what he's good at. And it's funny because he's so much more of a public figure than I. The narrative that was initially cast by Legion fans and Lewis fans was that I was some rich kid that just gave Lewis money and said, go do a network. And that I had no input on it, which was funny. It's now I think slowly people are starting to realize how that was it's preposterous, but that was the idea. A, that I had that much money to throw around was great, but B, that I just was so wealthy that I would just allow someone I barely knew to just go ahead, good luck, But we currently, I would say, these days, we have a good team, and we do see eye to eye. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we joke about how we probably would have never started this company had we known how many sleepless nights. Like I generally, and any one of my staff will tell you, I'm up till about maybe 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock on an average night, and I'm up at like 6. And it's because I'm constantly answering every tech problem, every issue, every email that comes in. I need to be on there and make sure that we're operating as much as we can. I just don't fucking sleep. And I go to bed every night with 2 or 3 emails in my inbox, and that's it. I make sure that by the time I go to bed, there is nothing that doesn't require a reply until some other point. You know what I mean? So I don't want to, if I didn't, I would wake up with 10,000 unanswered emails, and I just would rather respond immediately all the time. Like right now I see, since we started talking, I have 26 emails in my inbox that are going to be answered as soon as we're done with this, because I respond to people immediately all the time.
Wow. 26 emails, and how many are they are like penis enlarging pills?
Only penis enlargement.
Is that what you're getting?
Yeah, it's all I exclusively deal with penis enlargement.
Nice.
Well, I did see you guys were with Blue Chew. We actually hit them up with try to do some type of sponsorship. We were going to try to do like a promo and use their product, but they haven't answered our pitch yet.
I don't think and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure with Blue Chew, I get confused sometimes, but I don't think we're dealing with them directly. I think it was part of like a package deal with one of the bigger advertising companies. We sell about 60% of our ads My goal is to get it to like 70 before the end of the year. But 60% of our ads are sold in-house and 40 are done through third-party networks. Obviously, if you sell them in-house, you're making more money.
Yep.
But if you have unsold inventory, there's no reason to just make a deal and take a cut, So, I mean, most of these, I don't know where you're hosted, but most of these companies offer DAI ads that are at a laughably low CPM rate. But for those that are not tech savvy,
our host provider the same way. Essentially, with our host provider Spreaker, they we run an ad before. Sometimes we do it in the middle, and then sometimes we do it at the end. But essentially, all that's for is just to pay our host provider, and then we're out directly trying to find a different sponsor to sponsor the show, and if it's anything extra. Like recently, we had my bookie for a little bit, and that kind of like paid for some media stuff that we were trying to do to promote the show a little bit more. But we're still shelling money into it.
We were talking with Spreaker for a while, but we didn't make a deal. We came close, but we didn't make a deal. I feel that their percentages on the ad side are a little too aggressive, and I wasn't comfortable making that deal. So especially because they required every show on the network to give X amount of spots, and that inventory cost is worth too much to me to make the deal. So it just financially did not make sense.
Well, it's funny that you say that you were in with them, and then like that's just a relatable fact, I guess.
Yeah, because the owner of Spreaker came to the studios. If I may be confusing people, but I think he's the guy. He owns the National Lampoon brand. The guy that invested in Spreaker. I think it was. I may be confusing two different people. Before COVID, I was meeting a lot of different people. We met the head of the Pandora podcast division and a few other people. So my brain sucks, and I sometimes match the wrong people. But and we talked about us coming over there to Spreaker, but it just didn't make sense to us. Like we currently, and we're looking for a new provider, but it's got to make sense. A lot of these providers, as you're attesting to, when they run ads, you may see very little of that because they're doing it to cover their costs, their hosting costs. So it sounds great that you're not paying any hosting costs, but then when you're at like you said, close to 1,000 listeners, if you're at 100,000, 200,000, then that becomes a very valuable spot that you're giving up for them to pay their hosting.
Exactly. What do you guys? What do you like? You said that you guys do, and not an antic, but like I
call it a stunt show.
Yeah, a stunt show. Yeah. Like, where do the ideas come from?
Some are listeners. Sometimes I'll just shoot it out to the listeners. Most are in my stupid head or Jay's. It depends on one or two came from Shannon, my producer. I think one of them, which was we did our first event. Well, it started with this. We did when the show was in this apartment, when it was just the show before the network, we did the stupid thing called Up the Ante. So whenever a porn star came in, we told them what the last porn star did, and they had to do something to up the ante, right? So first we saw a boobie, woo, right? Then it was, you showed us our boobies, you're gonna have to show us your vagina, and then it was like, well, you got to show us your ass. So what do you know? And it got progressive to the point where we had girls peeing in our mouths at one point. Like it just got so ridiculous, that what are you going to do? And there was no ante to be upped at that point. So then it was, let's come up with these ideas. The first one was my dumb idea, was called Rock and Roll Jeopardy with Consequences, right? We did a live event somewhere. We got a couple hundred people to show up, and it was me versus Jay versus a fan in Rock and Roll Jeopardy. And if you won the question, they ask a question in a category, you get it right, you get the points like you would on normal Jeopardy. You get it wrong, you lose the points like you would on normal Jeopardy. But there was a dominatrix on stage that would also humiliate you.
Oh,
right. That was the first game we did. And then it went to the second one.
Brilliant.
We did Name That Tune with Consequences. So it was the Name That Tune game, me versus Jay. And if you got the question right, you got your points. And there was a beautiful female porn star on stage that you got to do a reward with. So maybe it was make out, maybe it was lick her genitals, whatever it was. there was like 10 of them, and you get that. But if you got it wrong, there was a gay male porn star on stage, and you had to do it with him.
Oh my God.
Right?
That's awesome.
Right? So that was like the first couple of shows.
Yeah.
And we did each of those a couple times. We did a Family Feud one once that involved the loser had to get something put up the winner. The winner put something up the loser's butt in that one, you know. But then it went to these stunt shows in studio because the live shows for me were too much work. Like we were doing one every quarter. It was just too much work. And we did the one that I brought this up so many times. This was an idea I had. I wanted to do my old radio show, but it was not legal. Was we are going to call it the Or Olympics. We will get a $1,000 escort, and we will get a $100 escort, and we will get blindfolded 1-minute blowjobs to see if it's worth the extra $900. And that was listen to episodes. You couldn't see her, you couldn't touch her, you couldn't. All you could do is feel the 1-minute blowjob, and we both picked the $100 girl. So it shows you that if you take everything else out of the picture, you're throwing $900 away. And then
in reality, you're throwing $1,000 away because you can get that for free. But yeah,
right. If you're going down that road, is what I'm saying.
That's true. If you have to pay, you should skimp on the cost.
Yes, exactly. Or and just wear a blindfold.
That's true.
Then one of the
did you guys negotiate it all with them or no?
Say again.
Did you guys negotiate with them at all?
I mean, ahead of time, I wanted them. I wanted one girl to be unbelievably gorgeous, and I wanted one girl to not be unbelievably gorgeous. So that was what was funny to me. I just had someone that knew escorts, and I asked her to just pick one that's really high end and one that's really low end, and that's what we came up with.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you 20 other dumb ones that we've done over the years. You know, Jay and I did a batch off where we both agreed on a Thursday we would not have sex or masturbate. And then at that time, the show was taping on Mondays. Is it now? I think now it's Wednesdays, but at the time it was Mondays. And so that Monday, we both had a girl help us relieve ourselves into a cup. And then we weighed those cups. And then the loser had to pour the winner's jizz over his hands and wash his hands with the jizz. And Jay lost and almost threw up.
It's just sanitizer. No,
yeah. And all dumb stuff like that. Really dumb. But to me, and I hate to use him as an example, but, you know, I loved Howard Stern growing up. And the idea with Howard, to me, what made Howard magical was not just the cock and ball nonsense, which is always great to do, but he would have incredibly good interviews with all walks of life, comedians and singers and actors, and he would delve deep into their lives and get really good stories. And then the next week, you'd have girls fucking a Saiban, you know, like a Saiban, whatever I think it was called, or weighing their dumps. You know, like there was always that what am I going to hear today that I loved about Howard. So that is what I modeled this show after. So I did a one-on-one interview with Mark Cuban for an hour that I would put up against any interview that anyone's ever done. I thought it was an incredible hour. Just me and him for an hour, right? And then we did fucking these dumb things, you know. So we've had great bands perform live. I had super powerful conversations. DMC of Run DMC was telling us about the time he tried to kill himself. Like we were like so enthralled, and you could hear a pin drop with listening to this crazy story of him. They had played, I think it was in the Ukraine, when they came back with the Down with the King record. It was their comeback record, went to number 1, and he said, look, we had the first biggest rap group of all time, the first rap group to cross genres into rock. And then now we come back. We have the number 1 album. It's our biggest album of our career. And we're selling out, the first American group to sell out in the Ukraine. And I had a sold out show. I got off the stage and I said to myself, I'm never going to top this. So he was going to kill himself because he just felt he couldn't do better.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And he got help and he's got better. And you know, then the next time he came on, I'm like, well, we can't talk about that again. So we had the idea, let's have a rap battle with DMC. And the question will not be which one of us won. The question is going to be which one of us is least terrible.
That's true. That's funny. That's very cool. So you're also one thing I noticed. Sorry about one thing that you know or that I noticed too is you're a Rick and Morty fan.
Huge, and we just this week on SDR is Spencer Grammer, aka Summer from Rick and Morty. We just that aired 2 nights ago, and it'll be out for free on Sunday. And she was awesome. I didn't know much about her going into this, but I really loved the interview with her. She was so cool, and boy, I've loved Rick and Morty. I don't want to say from the get-go, but from before the first season ended. So I missed I don't know how many. Let's say there's 12 episodes in a season. I don't know, but whatever it is, maybe on the 10th or 11th episode, I came into it.
Okay. And you haven't gone back.
No, I've watched them all. I've seen every single one of them multiple times. I'm just saying, like with Family Guy, I saw that premiere, which was the 99, right after the Super Bowl was the first episode of Family Guy, and I was a fan from day one. Loved it from day one. But I can't say that about Rick and Morty just because I missed the first. I just didn't watch them, so I was a little late to the party, but I was still comparative to most people pretty early.
Yeah, I was the same way. I didn't jump on board until Mark actually mentioned. He was like, "You got to check this out," because I was thinking all I thought it was basically okay. It's just a Back to the Future, you know, just seeing the commercials, thinking it's just Back to the Future kind of parody. Like, all right, but I'm like, and then he was like, "No, you got to see this shit." And when I watched it, I was like, "Holy shit!
It's so intricate and smart. It's great. It's
it's so
funny.
good.
The way that I describe it is it's so smart while being so stupid at the same time, and that's a great way to do it. Like they'll talk about multiverse theories, and then they'll make a fart joke. Like it's exactly what you want. I would imagine their audience skews predominantly male, but it's still. I just think it's a fucking incredible show, and unfortunately with Spencer. She provides some insight, but she's no Dan Harmon. She's not writing these things, but it was fun to hear stories from her perspective. And she did say that there is one very summer-centric episode coming before the end of the season.
Well, nice. Keep Summer Safe was a great episode.
Oh, yeah, so good.
Fan of her being in the show. Like, if I could continually say, "Shut up, Summer," I definitely would.
Yeah.
But Keep Summer Safe is such a good episode. And that was a summer-centric episode. That being said, do you have a favorite Rick and Morty episode that you enjoy a lot?
I would say that and it's funny because, boy, I'm going to sound like a real dork and schnorkel when I tell you this, but like one of my favorite shows of all time is Star Trek Next Generation, right? Okay. And I will always tell people to start with I forget what it's called right now, but the flute episode. It's a famous episode. It's the only episode that won a literary award, non-science fiction. I forgot the name of it right now because my brain is working at 40% since COVID. But it's just like an incredible episode. And I tell people, if you don't like that episode, don't bother with the show. Because this to me was just brilliant writing and an incredible episode. So you won't like the show. If you don't see that, you don't like it, don't bother. So with Rick and Morty, the 2 episodes I always say is the Get Swifty episode, and the Mr. Meekseeks, the first time with Mr. Meekseeks.
That is nice
episode.
If you don't get into it from those 2 episodes, you won't like the show. So don't bother.
What did you think of the Kirkland brand Mr. Meekseeks?
Oh, that was very funny. That was great. That was a really good dig. By the way, I told Summer, that's fucked up. Spencer, my favorite after credit scene of all time was this past week of Summer's friend and her talking about her father keeping bees. And then at the end, she goes, "I want to fuck your father." And she goes, "Oh, really?" Like that 30-second clip is so well written. And I watched it like 20 times. I just thought it was so well done. And she was so excited for that to come out because it was her favorite post-credit scene.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming to it.
Yeah, but it was just the delivery of that, "Oh, really?" was so good. It made it so funny. It was so great.
That's awesome.
And I was surprised to learn that she's doing they'll do a lot of pickups up until she said sometimes the day before it airs, they might change the line because they know as long as the mouth movement is somewhat similar, and you could even see it in that scene, of that we just talked about, the post credit, the friend's mouth is a little off on one of the lines. They changed the line. There's no way you didn't date in, but for one, you're not going to bother. But so she's changed a couple of lines. She did sometimes the day before.
Wow.
And have you watched? You watched obviously this new season. Like, what are your thoughts of this new season comparative to like some of the last ones?
I think what's funny is that people overanalyze it so much that you're taking away the fun. Just enjoying it. You know, I'm sure there might be some grandiose plan for fucking Evil Morty and Clone Beth and all of it. Who gives a shit? It's an enjoyable show. I don't need to freeze frame every single little thing into it. You know, like it's just not worth it to me. But some things I found fascinating, like in the episode last week where the VAT episode, that was the episode, it was so great. They talk about at the end that, we're not in our reality. I wouldn't fuck up our reality. We'll go back to our universe, right? And he said the reason why he likes this reality is the rocky road doesn't have marshmallows. You remember that was the line in the end of it, right?
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch freeze frame when he was in the ice cream parlor trying different ice cream, the rocky road is actually called Robbie Road. So that's actually a clue that they're not in our universe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Nice.
I did like the Magic Train or the Dream Train episode where
a lot of people hated that episode, but I thought it was great.
I thought it was great because it's just a huge FU to all the people that were like, you know, they're reading too much into it, and you know, there's canon here or there's canon there or things like that. Like that episode just was a huge middle finger to just everybody that thinks that everything is canon when it comes to Rick and Morty. So it just shows that show can go and do whatever they want, wherever they want.
Yeah.
And you just got to put the pieces together yourself.
The biggest mistake they could do is start reading online comments and altering their trajectory because of whatever people in Reddit are saying. It'd be the dumbest thing in the world. They got there not listening to anybody. And he's there. You know, I think, you know, Justin is brilliant in his own right, but it's all Dan. Dan is fucking, his brain is on a different level. That, you know, you meet people like, what's his name, like Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm. His brain works a different way than anybody else. He produced 19 years of incredible television. Who else could fucking say that? You know, that we're all groundbreaking. And this past season of Curb was phenomenal. I don't know if you watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, but it just was a phenomenal season. And it all comes from his head. It's crazy. And so Dan is one of those people. You also meet people like that in the music world, like Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue, right? He wrote every Motley record, every song. Big deal, good music, great. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. The part that's amazing is when you hear, he wrote songs for the Backstreet Boys and Saliva and Celine Dion, and he wrote songs for all these other people that some of them they recorded, some of them they didn't, but he worked with these people because his brain works that way. He's a fucking songwriter, you know? So certain people, you all of us, I feel, and it's funny, I just had this discussion the other day. It's a real 1-2 punch. Everyone's brain is wired a certain way, but you also need to have a passion for the way your brain is wired. So what I mean by that is you might be, Scott, the best singer in the world, but you don't give a shit about singing, so we'll never know. You know, and Mark, you might be a mathematician, but math bores you, so you never got there. So it's got to be the 1-2 punch of, my brain is wired for this and I love it.
Yeah.
You know, the hilarious thing is you actually picked us completely opposite. He's the singer and I'm the mathematician. Yeah. So that's kind of crazy.
Could you sing his math problems?
Yes, go ahead. Or I'm going to sing it. You want me to sing it? Ready? No, I'm just messing up.
We're all both awful singers. Let's not.
Yeah. Hey, I haven't heard you sing.
I've
I
never
would plan to try to at some point in the future when COVID's not going crazy. You know, it's a part of our lives, I guess. To try to do some type of antics show with you, if you'd be down for that. But I greatly appreciate that you came onto the show. You took time out. You talked basically podcast business
which is awesome.
With us.
I broke my microphone.
You broke. Well,
Sorry for that.
it's an omen we have. We have technical issues. Obviously, you've seen or heard that in different episodes. We have that on a regular basis. Can you tell us where we can? Obviously, people should know where to find you, but can you tell us where we can find you and all of that fun stuff?
The easiest thing in the world is I'm a big fan of the term I coined called social symmetry, meaning I'm everywhere at I am Ralph Sutton. The SDR show is everywhere at the SDR show. So it's just whether you're looking on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, you'll find them at that. And I think it's important when you start a show, you don't necessarily need to have a name that's unique, but find something unique that you can associate with that name, if that makes any sense. So, like, we would love to have been, I think when we were the SDR show, I think SDR show was taken, but we added the, and we got that everywhere, So that's what I mean by that. Just be creative in what you're going to call it. Like, maybe Amigos PC is taking, but Amigos PCast or Amigos Pod C or whatever, there's going to be some, or the Amigos P, whatever the fuck it is. Yeah. There's some computation, some derivative of it that's going to be everywhere, and that's the one you grab.
It's funny you mentioned.
So we need to change our name. Is that what you're saying?
No, you change your name. I just think you should also, by the way, I like the ¡80s vibe of the logo. You
like that? Yeah, we just revamped that, by the way.
Right? Is that what it is? Miami Vice logo?
It kind of is. Yeah, it kind of looks like that.
I think it's exactly that logo, not kinda.
Yeah, it is. It is that.
Fiverr does. That's all.
But yeah, social symmetry is important. That's my I always end up getting into podcast chats, and I apologize. I don't know if you guys wanted to talk more about vaginas and penises. I could always do that another time, but I don't know why I got into this. I've been so locked into making sure all our podcasts are up to snuff lately that I've just been really in a podcast mode. And because of my fucking almost 18 years in radio, I think I look at shows from a different lens.
No, yeah. I like the conversation that we had, and I greatly appreciate that we actually, had this kind of conversation. This is things that I'm up late at night, similar to like you, maybe not answering emails with fan base or anything like that, but essentially trying to figure out another way to get us in front of fan base. Scott will be on the brunt end of that at like 2:30 in the morning, 3 in the morning, getting text messages. Hey, bro, we need to do this, or hey, bro, we need to do that. So the fact that you brought that up and I can actually relate to it and things that you do, like I appreciate it at least.
Thank you. And is it wrong of me if I send you guys a bill for this?
Yeah, no. Well, the funny thing is we already have an Uber coming your way to bring you a new mic.
All right, that'd be nice. That's really nice. I appreciate it.
Because I know, aren't you guys still on lockdown too?
Yeah, we're on real lockdown. We are much more locked down than you guys.
Yeah, for sure. They just opened us up this week, I think.
Sounds
all right.
Cool.
Amigos out.
Yes. Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you.